Hillbilly Jim was more than a gimmick. He was a larger-than-life character that kids loved, fans cheered for, and the company pushed as a fan favorite. But one day he was just gone. No major retirement speech, no dramatic farewell match, no scandal, no headlines. So what really happened to Hillbilly Jim after WWE? The answer isn't as simple as you might think, and it's a story worth hearing. Hillbilly Jim, real name Jim Morris, wasn't supposed to be a star. He wasn't trained in some famous wrestling dojo or born into a legendary wrestling family. He was just a massive guy from Kentucky who loved wrestling and rock music. At 6 feet 7 inches and over 300 pounds, he stood out even in a locker room full of giants. But he didn't start out as Hillbilly Jim. Early in his wrestling days, he went by Harley Davidson, a biker-type character working in regional promotions. It wasn't until he caught the attention of WWE that his persona would completely change. In the mid-1980s, WWE was in the middle of its huge expansion. Vince McMahon wanted colorful characters that could appeal to kids and families, especially with the rise of Saturday morning wrestling shows. And that's where Hillbilly Jim came in. Instead of presenting him as a scary giant or a violent monster, WWE leaned into his real-life country roots. They dressed him in denim overalls, gave him a straw hat, and made him a lovable, smiling, good old boy from Mudlick, Kentucky. The gimmick clicked instantly. Audiences loved him. He was simple, kind, and fun. Kids wanted to cheer for him, and adults respected his no-nonsense attitude. WWE didn't just throw him into the mid-card either. They gave him a strong debut in 1984, complete with Hulk Hogan taking him under his wing on television. That was huge. Back then, if Hogan endorsed you, you were almost guaranteed to get over. But Hillbilly Jim's rise came with a bump in the road. Literally. In one of his early matches, he legitimately injured his leg. It wasn't part of the storyline. He slipped while exiting the ring and ended up with a broken leg that took him off TV for months. That was a major setback. Still, WWE kept him in fans' minds. They aired vignettes of him rehabbing with Hogan's help. And when he returned, he got a big pop. Fans hadn't forgotten him. Throughout the rest of the 1980s, Hillbilly Jim became a fixture in WWE's family-friendly programming. He teamed with Uncle Elmer and Cousin Luke to form a short-lived hillbilly family stable. They were comedy relief, but they were never treated like jokes in the ring. Jim especially remained a tough competitor who rarely lost clean. He had feuds with Bigjohnstudd, King Kong Bundy, and even wrestled at the very first WrestleMania. He was never in the title picture, but that didn't matter. He was over. Behind the scenes, Hillbilly Jim was known as a company man. He didn't cause drama. He wasn't difficult to work with, and he understood the assignment. He was there to entertain, not to play politics or chase titles. He embraced his role fully and took pride in it. That loyalty earned him a steady job through the entire 1980s boom period. But as the 1990s arrived, the wrestling world began to change. The over-the-top cartoonish characters were being slowly replaced by edgier, more realistic personas. Hillbilly Jim's character, though beloved, started to feel outdated. WWE quietly moved him away from in-ring competition. And just like that, without a big send-off or retirement angle, Hillbilly Jim stopped wrestling full-time around 1990. So what happened next? While most people assumed he faded into obscurity, Hillbilly Jim actually stayed closely connected to WWE, just in different roles. For years, he worked behind the scenes at fan events, autograph signings, and special appearances. He helped with talent relations and was one of the go-to guys whenever WWE needed a friendly face for community outreach. In other words, he became part of the glue that helped hold the WWE machine together off-camera. In the mid-1990s, Jim returned to television, but not as a wrestler. He was brought on as one of the managers in the short-lived WWE Coliseum home video series. He'd host VHS releases, narrate classic matches, and talk about the good old days. Fans from that era remember his familiar smile and southern charm introducing match compilations like it was story time around a campfire. Then in the 2000s, Hillbilly Jim had a surprising resurgence. But this time, it was on the radio. When WWE launched SiriusXM's WWE Radio, later becoming part of SiriusXM's Busted Open radio network, Jim hosted a show called Hillbilly Jim's Moonshine Matinee. It wasn't just about wrestling. He played classic Southern rock, blues, and country, and told stories from his days on the road. The show became a hidden gem for fans who loved wrestling history and music. Even though he wasn't wrestling, Hillbilly Jim stayed loyal to the company and its legacy. He never turned bitter. He didn't bury the product. He didn't write a tell-all book trashing his peers. He stayed respectful, humble, and focused on what he loved, and fans respected that. For years, there were whispers about him going into the WWE Hall of Fame, but year after year, he was passed over, until finally in 2018 it happened. At the 2018 WWE Hall of Fame ceremony, Hillbilly Jim was officially inducted. The honor was long overdue. In his speech, he didn't hold back emotions. He thanked the fans, his family, and the company for believing in him. He told stories about Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, and the wild days of traveling from town to town in cars packed with wrestlers. It wasn't the flashiest speech, but it was real, and it reminded everyone why Hillbilly Jim mattered. But not everyone was happy about his Hall of Fame moment. Some fans felt that Hillbilly Jim's speech ran too long. Critics online joked about how he seemed to talk forever without ever getting to the point. It became a mini controversy for a few weeks. But here's the thing. Hillbilly Jim had waited decades for that moment. If he wanted to talk a little longer than others, who could blame him? After the Hall of Fame induction, Jim returned to the quiet life. He still made rare appearances at conventions, did the occasional interview, and continued to host his radio show. But for the most part, he embraced retirement fully. No scandals, no money problems, no tragic downfall. Just a peaceful, satisfying end to a career that started with a simple gimmick and became a decades-long ride. It's rare in wrestling to find someone who walks away without bitterness. Hillbilly Jim did just that. He took the hand he was dealt, made the most of it, and never once complained about what he didn't get. He knew he wasn't going to be world champion, but he also knew that fans remembered him. And in wrestling, that's the biggest victory of all. So what really happened to Hillbilly Jim after WWE? He lived his life. He found peace. He stayed loyal. He remained a part of the business without ever chasing the spotlight. He understood that wrestling is about more than just wins and losses. It's about making people feel something. And when Hillbilly Jim walked to that ring with his overalls and wide smile, people felt happy. That was his gift, and it lasted far longer than any title reign. If you enjoyed this video and want more stories about wrestlers who quietly made a difference, those who didn't chase headlines but still left a mark, then make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments. What's your favorite memory of Hillbilly Jim? Thanks for watching.